Okay, so we're gonna talk about the forest. This is the afterthoughts video.
Do we have
So,
to? Didn't we get enough trauma just from playing it?
you're not wrong, but yes, we do have to. You will be held at gunpoint if need be. So, do you want to start with the pros or the cons?
I think we should start with the pros. It's a shorter list.
Yeah, I did find myself with a lot more cons than pros, it seems. At least more to say about the cons. So the first pro was the inventory and the crafting. I really like just the setup in general of how they do it. It's really unique. It's almost reminiscent of Resident Evil 4, like the attaché case style of inventory, except way more interactive, and there's a place for everything. I wish you could multi-craft. Like, if I put 12 sticks and 6 rags, I should be able to just make 2 bone armor instead of having to click one and then click it away and then click it again. And then finally, I have my second piece of armor.
Right. That was a bit cumbersome.
Yeah, they do not make it simple to make more than one object. Like, especially when you're making explosives, that's kind of annoying.
I did like that they told you everything you can craft, though. Basically, throw something in the middle, review the cog, and you can see everything you can make. I like that you didn't have to, like, go on the internet once if you didn't want to.
At least for crafting recipes, yes, absolutely. They are very clear about what can be done with everything. However, certain things like raccoon fur or whatever that last fur we need for the warm suit is kind of dumb. Like,
2 playthroughs never once got a raccoon fur.
yeah, we always just survived off of like lighting shit on fire instead of getting a warm suit. Also, the snowshoes are cool, but they kind of like lower your endurance when you're not in snow. So I guess there has to be some downside, but I don't see the necessity in that. Why punish people for not taking them off? Just like the respirator too.
Yeah, and the respirator kind of just put itself on if you accidentally got submerged by water, and
Yeah.
then never. I'm glad we found it late in the game because that would have got annoying real quick, and it did.
Yeah, it also seemingly took a toll on your stamina when you were wearing it and running. So,
Yeah, couldn't keep up with you. No conditions, literally nothing. And if I would run behind you wearing my respirator, I was drinking a sodies or stopping to regain stamina much more frequently.
right, and our athletics were at like all of point one of a difference, one way or the other.
Right. Same with weight. It wasn't like I was a big fatty. Like,
So yeah, there's the inventory itself is excellent, but some of the features that come with it can be cumbersome. But I'm sure it can be improved upon to be like one of the best inventory systems of any game ever when Sons of the Forest comes out. Next pro,
another.
oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, you can go if you want to go on with the next pro.
No, if you got more to say, go for it.
I was just gonna add my 2 cents about in the first playthrough, the world seemed really well built. It wasn't until you got really far into it and noticed that nothing really mattered. Like the whole point of the game was just to get to the end as quick as possible and avoid as many cannibals as possible. But like, remember we were building like a fort and like we ended up on the beach at one point and started building up and just the more you build, more things come and destroy it. So it's not really, there's not a point to it, but in the beginning, it was really cool. And I think the world was really well crafted to at least pique one's creativity and interests.
On the first playthrough, at least.
Right. We didn't really do much on the second playthrough because we already experienced that trauma.
Right. That actually leads into the next topic pretty decently. Long term play is, in endless mode, actually makes building useful or gives you a reason to build because otherwise, what's the point? You want to run around and get your ass beat by stronger and stronger cannibals for 30 more days, 90 more days, 500 more days. Like, it gives building a point. You can kind of turn it into a horde mode. I mean, it's, play the survival game, but there is no end to the survival now. The only thing is you can only access endless mode when you choose the emergency shutdown ending. Endless mode does not come with the canon ending. You have to beat the game and then go back and beat it again if you want endless mode. And the same goes for the yacht key. You can only access the yacht key or the yacht with that golden key card if you choose endless mode. Because otherwise, you're just sent right back to where your last save was, which was actually decently far away in our playthrough. Like, we were half an hour, 45 minutes away. Like, we got put back at the. Before we even touched the lab, was our last save.
As easy as the end boss was, honestly, since we didn't need to do any additional exploring, we could have just like rushed that in maybe 20 minutes, but it's still, after beating a game that annoying, I didn't want to go back.
Right, like it definitely felt bad near the end. We were rushing to get that shit done. It did not feel very enjoyable, I guess is the word. Like, by the time we hit the end boss, I was literally like, all right, we've just got an inventory full of explosives. We've got pretty much everything. I'm sure there's like something we missed because it's so hard to get everything, but it was just like, let's get this shit over with. And then all of a minute and a half later, the boss is dead. And it's like, oh, well, that was way easier than the first time we killed it. The first time we killed it, we died probably a combined total of 10 times. Where
And
go ahead.
we didn't have the modern bow or the gun at that point. I don't think we built nearly as many IEDs as we used during that battle.
Very true. Yeah, we definitely had the best weaponry available. I don't know what type of damage the flintlock pistol was doing, but I shot her with it a couple of times and mostly used the compound bow, and she just kind of fucking melted. Like, you're allowed to carry 50 arrows with a quiver. I used like 10, and you probably used about the same. I don't know if you threw explosives. I think I threw like 2 or 3, and fucking bada bing. That's a giant spider monster created from God knows fucking what, dead. Just splattered everywhere.
To be fair, we were playing on the easier mode, although getting to her in the harder mode would have been a fucking nightmare.
Right, like, we tried to start it off on hard or whatever the next up difficulty is, but we were at the very beginning getting fucking smacked. Like, you would walk up to a cannibal and they'd just like poke you and you die. It was very difficult.
Yeah, what we like couldn't even really get off the airplane. Like the minute we hopped off, some cannibal came up and just like bullied us.
Right, yeah, we literally were airplane locked.
There's got to be some masochist out there making content for the forest hard mode.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure they're in, like, day 300 of endless mode. The good
I
news is,
still kind of like the idea that we could have stayed on that island with our cassette players and like rocked out for several hours of game content, if not more.
I mean, I
There was
still have the
birds, there were
save file.
turtles.
So, if ever in the
just
future.
just stream on Twitch. Me and the boys rocking out on the forest island.
You're right. Well, me and the boy, because I'm not getting somebody else into this shit and having to take them through all those caves again to go find all the tools and make them, like, viable in the end
Oh
game.
my god.
Imagine bringing
Fucking
Bridget in or something and she just has the plain axe, and we're just like, alright, have at it.
can you trade high level items like using the, I don't know, the silver pan or the aluminum pan or whatever it is?
I would assume no for unique items, but you were able to trade me that gun part, which we'll get to that in
Seems
a
like a
second.
unique item.
Yeah, that's definitely a unique item. So that's one of the cons. I guess we're just gonna go back and forth. Fuck starting with pros and cons. We're gonna bounce back and forth to whatever.
We could always recap at the end.
Right, right. So at the very end, we explored the entire island using a fucking map that I looked up to find each and every part of the gun. We encountered a glitch that is well known. There were multiple different forum posts and things like that about it, meaning that the developer had to be aware of it, and it didn't get fixed. I can understand not wanting to fix it now because Sons of the Forest comes out in like 2 months as of making this, but like being aware that a necessary part that you can only find in one place, it just isn't spawning or is glitching out and getting stuck somewhere people can't find, seems kind of fucked up. So we had to resort to using developer mode, literally just going to creative mode in Minecraft basically to give ourselves the last part, because why would we not want the reward for our hard work to be able to use in the video and display that content for the game as well?
Right. The gun was ultimately a bit disappointing, given that it was
Mm-hmm.
like a top-loading musket type gun.
Right, yeah. Literally the most shitty little flintlock pistol. It's like, fuck, man, I might as well just use it as a club. Good news is the trailer for the Sons of the Forest is loaded with like modern weaponry. Also, it seems like the main character is Timmy, but the guy you play as in the forest, Timmy's dad, is in it too. I saw a trailer where he's like, "Get away from them, son," blah blah blah, and fucking blasts a cannibal to shit with a shotgun. He's just
Maybe
looking like
he's
a
the
big fat
second
bearded
player.
biker. Probably. That would be actually really cool. That would be really cool. Instead of you're both
Me and my
just Timmy's
boy.
dad, or Timmy's dad and his clone Timmy's dad boyfriend.
After your mother tragically died, I resorted to liking dudes, Timmy.
Right. The thing is, though, I'm a narcissist, so I could only fuck myself.
On an island. Timmy, Timmy's dad, and Timmy's dad. Two Timmy's dads, one Timmy, Sons of the Forest.
So let's talk about resources. The resources such as food, water, things like that aren't too hard to find. There's pretty much always a plentiful supply of soda and candy bars, mostly soda. Candy bars are a little bit harder to find, but still not too bad. Um, Clean water exists plenty in there. There's plentiful sources in the game, but trying to actually drink out of it is fucking nightmarish. You have to find the exact right angle to dip your lips into that water or your water skin, whatever you're using.
So you're supposed to boil it, but it seems inconsequential if you don't. Maybe I don't know how it is on hard mode, but there was other than hearing your character go, "Bleh," there was just no reason to boil your water.
Right, there is like we can't speak for hard mode or hard survival where it has like the timer on it, but there was almost no punishment whatsoever for avoiding any type of self-care. Like I didn't even know aloe existed until like halfway, three-quarters of the way through, where it was like, hey, eat some aloe to stop being sick, and it's like, oh, well, oh boy, I have a ton of aloe in my inventory. It barely even matters because the worst thing you do is take like a little bit of weakness in one of your stats. Like it doesn't even really punish you that much. It's like you've been sitting here bashing cannibals with an axe the whole time. I think you're strong enough to be a little bit like to have a cold and be able to still bash cannibals with an axe. Speaking of cold, actually, constantly having to be dipped in water when swimming was annoying because every single time you get out, you are cold and fucking wet. Thankfully, like they let us have portable fire with being able to light your axe with some cloth on fire or a fiery stick or whatever, because stopping to crack open your book, build a fire, and then hope you have enough sticks after the last 20 fires you built is kind of annoying.
I think the whole concept was annoying. I understand survival games, sure, throw obstacles at the player so they have to be inconvenienced, but as opposed to being difficult, the game was mostly just inconvenient. Oh, I'm cold and wet again. Oh, hey, I just got warm. Let's jump into that water again. Oh, I'm cold and wet again. Oh shit, a cannibal. Let's make new armor. Got to burn that cannibal.
Yep.
And it was just simulating keeping your stats up, which honestly you could do on paper.
Right. Could just play D&D. At least food and
Right.
drink are easy to come by. Like, animals are plentiful, especially after you get even the most basic bow. It's pretty easy. Deer are like the most realistic thing in that game because you fucking walk up and stab them and they're just like, please sir, may I have some more? Like they just let you stab or beat them to death. Like
I mean,
I
they're all
could
like
spend hours beating deer to
baby
death with
deer though.
rocks. Eh,
If there was like if there was like a fucking buck in that game, I think it would have been more if the game's realistic, it would have been more detrimental to our health and safety than a cannibal.
I mean like what, getting gored by its horns?
Dude, bucks will fuck you up.
Yeah, or like alligators were cool. The thing is though, they kind of suffer from the deer conundrum where you kind of just walk to their side and poke at them with a sharp stick and they kind of just roll over and die.
I'm
They're
not sure
also
where
only
that
on
game
one
was
part of the
supposed to
map.
take place. Like they had I'm pretty sure those are crocodiles based on how fucking fat they were.
And their
And
C-shaped
also
snout.
yeah, also just like where do we have a cold location that also just happens to have fucking crocodiles?
Yeah, speaking of
Like
things that don't belong in an area, pretty sure that great white sharks do not ever get that close to the shore of any place. Like that's bull sharks and tiger sharks mostly.
think maybe in like South Africa you can see some great whites off the shore, but like usually the only time they're on the beach is if they're ill or dying or dead.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm assuming I was talking about the alive ones, not the ones that are literally dead on the beach.
Mm.
Like the
No, I
fuckers
meant
that come
like
up and take a chunk out of you.
yeah, I don't think they would be like so we have great whites, crocodiles, and fucking snow biome all close to one another. Like the orcas would make
Mm-hmm.
more sense.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because, like, my guess, I think I said was in Iceland or the Netherlands or something when it came to where it was at. Because that's,
So the currency was US dollars, but on the was it the chainsaw advertisement? It was Canadian dollars. So I'm thinking like the Pacific Northwest, given like the foliage and the close proximity to a snow biome. Just what doesn't make sense is crocodiles and sea turtles. Like that's like some Australian shit.
right, it's like they couldn't pick a place. They were just like, we're going to have the highest altitude be cold, the middle altitude be a deciduous forest, and then the lowest altitude be a goddamn Miami beach.
Right?
And I mean,
So
the
apparently,
island's literally shaped like a bar graph that just slowly inclines up.
so apparently, it's a peninsula.
So, what's the natural barrier blocking us? The mountains?
Yeah.
Because I swear,
Which
even in the game, they refer to it as the island.
do they?
I could swear that they do. I could be making that up, but I could swear that it's referred to as the island.
It might be a different game. I think there's a game called The Island. Let's see. Where
There probably is. There's probably a game named
does the
everything.
forest take
I
place?
don't know. As of talking about it, apparently one of the top 3 games on Steam is only Fap Simulator, so.
So the game takes place on a remote, heavily forested peninsula where the player character Eric LeBlanc must fight off cannibalistic monsters while searching for some Timmy after a plane crash.
Timber.
Where's the forest located? British Columbia, yeah, so the Pacific Northwest. So crocodiles shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
Hold on.
I mean, I'm not
Are
going to complain
there
because they give us 4 lizard armor, but still.
crocodiles in the Pacific Northwest? In the zoo, perhaps.
Yeah, in the zoo, perhaps. Exactly. I'm pretty sure there's no goddamn zoo on that peninsula. I will be calling it the
Oh,
island, and you can't stop me on that island.
hold on. There is something called the American crocodile.
Well, yeah, but we're in Canada.
British Columbia and
That's a
Washington are
joke.
practically the same place.
That's a joke. But see. The thing is, we found them on the beach, swimming out of salt water. I know there are saltwater crocodiles, but the thing is, it's an ocean that they're swimming out of, not like a pond. I have a hard time believing that I mean, actually, I can't say I know exactly how far crocodiles can swim, but I do know that they don't spend prolonged periods in water because it makes them cold and then they get slow and die or get eaten by the fucking magically appearing great white sharks.
So American crocs are also in Florida. Like they're cold-blooded. They can't like live in Washington State or British Columbia.
Yeah, exactly. That's my point. Like, there's no way that they're swimming up there in the ocean. It's just not happening. Like, I know that
Well,
some are known to spend time in the ocean, but they're not swimming hundreds of miles up to some random Canadian peninsula, if that's where it's
and
at.
all the saltwater crocs are like Indian Pacific
Oh yeah,
Ocean range, like from India to northern tip of Australia,
yeah.
Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, apparently.
I think a saltwater crocodile is also known as the Nile crocodile. Like, they're in much
Hmm.
warmer climates. I could be wrong. I'm not a herpetologist, but
Do herpetologists study crocodiles?
I would assume so. Crocodiles are reptiles, right?
Are all reptiles herps? We're so off topic.
That's
There shouldn't
okay.
be fucking crocodiles in British Columbia.
That's the thing. Yeah, we're not off topic because we're trying to figure out why the fuck there are crocodiles in this game.
Hold on. Why are there crocodiles in the forest game?
Because the fucking makers put them in there. That's why.
The crocodile village? Three straw fishing huts and five fishing stands. It's the only place there's crocodiles in the game.
Well, that explains why they were hard to find because they were only in one place. It's probably just like a little farming spot. Maybe they did it as a courtesy. But talking about crocodiles and them giving armor leads us into probably your favorite part of this discussion, armor and how inconsistent it is.
Fucking Armor Simulator 2017 or whenever the fuck the forest came out. Dude, armor is easily the worst part of the game. Go
Yeah,
skin this lizard. Cool, fine, absolutely. Easy. Mix it with some leaves, become camouflage? Sure, absolutely. Lose all your armor to one cannibal encounter? Not cool. Burn cannibal for his armor? Cool. Have to do it 20 more hundred times? Not cool.
right. And considering that bone armor is basically the second best tier of armor in the game and also the most plentiful, you're pretty much constantly reliant on burning those cannibals after those encounters if you want to stay not dead.
Also, why couldn't we just use animal skins for various armors, like cure leather armor on a leather rack, for example?
Exactly. Like, now watch. I'll eventually post this after I'm done with it, and somebody in the comments will be like, hey, stupid, you can make leather armor.
Right?
Like, yeah, you just didn't because building's useless, right? Something like that. But the armor just is so cumbersome. It slows the game down. Charging through a cave, soaked in blood, going nuts, murdering cannibals and mutants, and then you're like, oh, I got hit 6 times. Now let me go and grab all of those bodies because one cannibal body is worth one piece of armor, but one cannibal can take off, in theory, all of your armor. Like it becomes extremely cumbersome, and then you have to stop, sit there, and while you're there, you're sitting there just kind of spanking your monkey. Like, oh well, let's wait for these to burn. And yeah, there's the hairspray can, but it runs out. And it's actually a good weapon, but it sucks that you have to kind of save it for burning bodies so you don't have to constantly make fires as you go.
So I came across the very important answer to one of our questions. Turns out crocodiles are herps. Um,
Good.
Amphibians and reptiles together are called herpetofauna, or herps for short.
Herpetofauna, that is a new word to me.
Herpetofauna? I don't know. Something with a herp in it, and fauna.
Makes sense.
The fauna with herpes, sure. But also, uh, fuck, I lost my other point. You can keep going.
We were on armor.
You had said something though, and I forgot what I was gonna say about it.
About how it slows the
Oh,
game down.
The spray cans. Apparently, you can also just find empty spray canisters, um, just laying around. I don't know if maybe you dropped one persisted through.
Oh,
Picked up a.
that was a weird audio bug.
Am I still on my Yeti?
You're good now. You're good now. It just like wonked out for a second.
I'll restart then.
No, no, no. It's
Um,
you're fine. You're good.
okay, if you don't mind the editing.
Oh yeah, I don't mind.
Um,
It'll be. Don't worry. I'm gonna edit out all the quiet moments and things like that. It's not a big deal.
for sure. But yeah, the fact that I could pick up an empty spray can of hairspray, I literally used my spray can because I'm like, shit, I might as well use the rest of this, pick up this new one, and it was just an empty one. And yeah, maybe it was one you dropped, but it was kind of frustrating because I didn't find a single spray can from that point on.
Right. They're definitely hard to find. I actually. It seems like there were a few locations in the game where they just were, but most of them that I found were in suitcases, which is random loot. Speaking of that, duct tape. Duct tape was also difficult to find.
Duct tape was a fucking bottleneck. I had 300 cloth and booze out the fucking ass and watches. You couldn't even imagine how many watches one could possess at one time.
Four, I
Coins.
believe.
Well, yeah, but like if you could use four and then pick up 12 more just by beating a corpse,
I
like,
know. Yeah, yeah, you can.
and
It's
the,
unlimited watches. I don't know how one person can have so many watches in them, especially after getting strung up by cannibals.
cannibals don't have any need for watches.
Yeah, but
They're
like, does this man have watches from his wrist to his shoulder like Danzo with Sharingans? Like, what the fuck?
it's he was a watch dealer. He was on a business trip
There's a lot of
selling
watch dealers on
watches.
that plane.
It was a watch convention.
That could be possible. Except Timmy's dad was not wearing a cool watch, so I think that theory's debunked.
He was on a connecting flight.
Ah, that makes sense.
The
So, like,
forest. Plane full of watch dealers crashes.
I wish that you could wear a watch and actually, like, see. Because obviously you can look out and see what time of day it is. But I want to know, like, more of an exact time. Like, hey, sun goes down at 10 o'clock. What time right now is it? You know, being able to wear a
Right.
watch would have been cool. And also not having to wait until 3 a.m. or so, judging by how dark out it is, to sleep in a tent would be cool too.
Also, the fact that our sleeping times were different, and that one time we
Yeah.
didn't sleep until it was almost already morning.
Yeah, that was really I think it was because I had just recently slept and there was probably some type of weird cooldown timer on it, but I don't know. That was really weird. We didn't encounter that at any point throughout the game except that one time. Um
I would have
but
liked to see a cell phone. It's modern times,
yeah,
I think.
there
And
was
like
a cell phone. Do you remember when they had two heads that were like stitched together and there was a cell phone lighting them up in front of it for a piece of info?
right, right. So like we should have had cell phone as a watch option, as a maybe there's no service because we're in the middle of buttfuck nowhere, but like could have taken a picture of all of the maps. That way you just have everything on one device. Could have made it a little bit less clunky.
Right. I mean, in general, like the tools weren't that bad. There's a few that didn't really make sense. Like, for instance, we found the modern axe very early on, as far as I know. And then near almost the end of the game, after getting the scuba gear, we found the rusty axe. Like,
Yeah, that was
it
so
makes no
helpful.
sense. Like it's basically making all the tools you find after a certain point useless. Like let's say we find the scuba tank early because everything's not randomized. Everything is in the same exact point in every playthrough. So after a second playthrough, I know exactly where the scuba gear is at. We literally go into that cave, grab the scuba gear, and everything's accessible from that point on. Like, which I kind of wish we would have done, but I expected I thought everything was randomized where you find it. until I found out that it wasn't.
Yeah, just the plane. Literally everything else will remain the same as far as I know.
Exactly. Like, and even with previous knowledge, we were discovering new things through this playthrough. Like, we didn't know there was a map. We didn't know there was a cave map. We didn't know that there was the modern axe, the compound bow. Like, there's a lot of different shit to collect that in the end is almost necessary. It is like necessary adjacent to have. Without those, you kind of just screw yourself. Like, you're almost required, especially if you're going to do endless mode. Like, forget survival. If you're going to do endless mode, completely exploring all of the cave systems is necessary.
Something I don't ever want to do again.
Yeah,
The first time it was cool. Like, oh, there's some caves. I haven't really played a cave exploring game. I haven't really done much spelunking digitally, unless you consider like 2D dungeon crawlers. But
Minecraft.
like Minecraft's its own thing. That's
I know, I know, I know. That was a joke. I can't imagine comparing the two for cave exploring.
I mean, they're strikingly similar. There's monsters in caves that come after you and try to eat you while you're mining, but there's no mining in the forest, so like it's totally different.
Right. Well, I mean, we can
Which,
throw a TNT at certain rocks, I guess.
yeah, like a total of 10 in the game.
Right, right. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. You were going to say something before that.
Yeah, so the first playthrough, the exploring was actually quite nice. The second time and doing it in completion, it was quite awful.
Right.
Just repetitive, the same thing. They didn't add anything special in the caves. It was mostly just empty area and maze-like empty area with a lot of water to make you cold and wet,
Yeah.
and a lot of cannibals to eat your armor.
Not to mention that there was more than one occasion where I would be looking in a direction and a cannibal would snap into existence, charge, and smack me and take armor away, which is absolutely infuriating because the game the like I wouldn't say it's high intensity since we've played it before. I know what to expect. I know about the threat levels of everything, but you're still constantly keeping your eye out so you're not getting ambushed by, a mutant or a cannibal. And to have that kind of just circumvented by a cannibal going snap and appearing right in front of you and then charging you is kind of ridiculous.
And I don't think they were supposed to do that either. I think that might have been a glitch because there's usually a predetermined amount of cannibals in a cave, and then once you clear it out, they're gone until you like start again.
Right, right.
So like they
Like,
might have not graphically shown up, but I think they were probably there and then graphically snapped into existence.
yeah, and that wouldn't be the first visual bug that we had to deal with either, because every time we logged back in to start a new session, another one of our tools was missing the visual indicators for damage or speed or whatever upgrades. Like, by the end, nothing that was upgradable that I had besides the spear, because I think the explosive spear is treated like an entirely separate item, had the feathers or the teeth on it. I lost it on my modern axe, my machete, my plain axe. Nothing had any of the upgrade indicators, like the visual indicators. The upgrades didn't go away as far as I could tell, but the visual indicators were gone, and that means that you have to stop, throw them into the crafting cloth, and check and see if you still actually have all of your upgrades on there.
Right, and that didn't happen to me until later in the game, which was weird because it happened to us differently at different times. Like we each experienced the graphical glitch, but not like together.
Right. I think the first time it happened to both of us on our modern axes, and then after that, it was randomly happening to us every time we logged in.
That and the armor, it would show like a
Yes.
couple up top, a couple at the bottom, and then just blank spaces in between.
Right. And like to me, I couldn't tell if I was supposed to have full armor or if I was literally just missing armor and the game wonked out. Like it's obviously meant to start at the bottom. It's where it builds up from. However, I will say that our reward for beating the game was getting to watch Timmy spaz out on stage. I think that's the single best part of the entire game is after you rescue Timmy, you go on stage and you just kind of look down to your right and he's just going and just twitching hard as fuck. Like tweaking, man.
My reward is getting to watch a kid have a seizure.
No, the Caesar part's not funny. The twitching part is though, because you're like sitting there getting interviewed by this host who obviously has no fucking idea what you just went through, like not even close. And he's like, haha, in your book, it seems like you mix fiction with fact, huh? Because you're probably talking about cannibals and mutants and explaining the lab and shit like that. And he's just like, haha, such a creative mind. And you're thinking like, no, I had to murder a lot of cannibals. I don't think you understand. And then you just look over and Timmy's just wonking out like his model was made in Gmod. Like, it's great. And I
I
mean,
do like
no, go ahead.
I do like that there is something left at the ending for you to ponder. Like there's the two artifacts. The fact that you crash another plane, so someone else is going through that exact thing. They won't have to kill the same boss as you, I would imagine, given that you took care of her, but they would have to find a replacement for their child so the cycle would continue. I'm not exactly sure how it all pans out, but there's definitely a lot for the imagination as well as a lot of content to be left with Sons of the Forest.
Right, I definitely agree with the cycle continues sentiment because that seems to be the whole point. Otherwise, if you because the canon ending is that Timmy lives. Like the Sons of the Forest trailer confirms that. Timmy is the main character, I think. So the canon ending has to be that you crash another plane, which leads to someone else getting stuck on the island. However, at a certain point, like the labs were shut down, the labs were no longer in effect. At a certain point, there should be no more cannibals, no more mutants. There should be a finite number of them. So,
Right.
like it would eventually turn into an endless cycle of, people crashing a plane, taking someone's son, and doing the whole relic swap on them. And
But like, who's on the plane that's a survival expert that's going to figure that shit out? I would imagine if like it follows the first one, they're going to return and it's just going to be a dead ass plane. Like,
probably,
okay.
as far as I know from what I read about Sons of the Forest, it's actually going to take place on a different island. You go in via helicopter, apparently, according to the trailer, and you're there to rescue some important person's son. So, also judging by the main character from the first game's model, it's been a significant amount of years. One, because Timmy's now an adult that could be anywhere from mid 20s to mid 30s, as far as I can tell by the end of the Forest. And the
I would
father
imagine he
is like
prefers
old
Tim
and
now.
fat. He's like old, fat, and gray. Where in the game, he's. Let's. On the high end, he's like late 30s, early 40s. I would say he's probably early 30s with, a 6-year-old son or whatever Timmy is. 6, 8, 10, whatever. So there will be a significant amount of time that has passed. So if we're going back in to rescue someone like that we basically caused the crash of, there better be something more to it. I guess that's what I'm getting at. Also, it's like a lightning strike with a survival expert being the only survivor of the crash besides his son, who is then stolen by Dr. Madman.
I'm sure there were more survivors. The cannibals just had their way with them.
Yeah, those aren't called survivors if they're dead.
I meant like survivors from the plane crash.
Okay, gotcha.
And
Yeah.
then honestly, some of those cannibals might have been survivors. Although we found all the passengers, so probably not.
Well, but see,
Previous
like the cannibals suffer from like the Attack on Titan dilemma where they don't have genitals. So they were obviously lab experiments, right? Or were they a natural part of that whole peninsula?
Maybe. They built the labs around the artifacts, and the cannibals could have been separate, so they just like did experiments on cannibals using the artifacts, and maybe the cannibals were like the original creators of the artifacts, like generations ago, but who knows? They don't really go into that. I would like to learn more about that.
Yeah, an explanation of the artifacts and how they came to be would be nice in the second game for sure. Because they're the biggest mystery, and they're dropped on you pretty much right at the end when there isn't really time for explaining. All you really know is that Megan was involved with the artifacts and they used them to experiment on her. From my understanding, Megan was killed, and then our plane was forced to crash by the doctor or whatever, who was her dad, I believe. And then because of her revival, she turned either into an experiment that turned into the spider monster, or the revival itself turned her into a spider monster, which leads us to question what happened to Timmy. Is he a spider monster? Are we gonna have weird cannibal special superpower skill trees in Sons of the Forest?
That'd be neat.
That would be neat. I'd be super down for that. I'm already really excited to see all the modern weaponry that we're gonna get to use instead of fucking rocks on sticks.
For as much as we're shitting on the forest, I think it's safe to say we're excited for the sequel.
Yeah. See, that's the thing. Like, you're always gonna remember the bad times better than the good times, but overall, like, the game's absolutely worth playing. I give it like a solid 8 out of 10 on the low end, especially
Um,
considering that it wasn't backed by some gigantic AAA developer. Like, they really made their vision their game. So, I mean,
I'm
props
gonna
to the developers.
tentatively give it a 4.5 out of 10, but if the Suns is really good, I'll bump that up to a 6.
Really, you'd give it a 4.5. Is it
I
because
think
you hated
any
the armor?
So the first playthrough was neat because there was three of us and it was just the first time playing it. I maybe would have given it a 7 because it was like the caves were empty and it was annoying, and but the second time through, like, it's I don't think it was actually worth playing a second time through. It was worth it because we were recording it and playing it together. But like if I bought that game, played it alone twice in a row, I think I wouldn't have got through even halfway that second playthrough.
Yeah, it's definitely a game meant to be played with friends. I would not recommend playing it more than once on your own. Especially if you. Well, and we went for as much of the content as we could on the second time through. The first time we kind of just discovered the lab and said, fuck it, let's go in here and kind of oopsied our way into the end of the game.
And if I'm not mistaken, we were both kind of on the verge of just not playing anymore on the first playthrough until one of us accidentally found the lab.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah, we,
so
we
like
were
I
getting
don't,
bored.
I really don't want to give it anything higher than a 5 on the first playthrough, maybe a 6 on the first playthrough, but after really spending more time with it, 4.5 out of 10. But if Sons of the Forest turns out excellent, I'll bump that up because it's worth knowing the backstory.
Right, everything's got to start somewhere. I would hope though that with, I mean, because The Forest was a commercially successful game. Like it's not a small indie developer anymore. There's a lot riding on Sons of the Forest. I'd have to imagine, because I don't know if what was it, was it End Night, I think, or something like that developed it. That's got to be their big IP now. Like, I would have to imagine that there's a lot riding on the success of the Sons of the Forest. However, I've been watching the trailers, and I will say that there is a lot of the original game's DNA in there, and I would say that judging off of what I've seen, there may be a little bit too much. Like, they've improved animations, but I could swear to God I saw that you still have to crack something open, place a blueprint, and then build the fire. The only difference is that the animation for building the fire now includes you wonkily throwing sticks and leaves into it and then using your lighter a little bit differently. Like, I am unfortunately worried that the main gameplay loop is going to be strikingly similar besides the addition of some cooler, newer modern weaponry.
Actually, giving myself a watch of the trailer now, and it does look strikingly similar.
Like the
They might have
dude, the
reused a lot of
cannibals,
assets.
yeah, the cannibals look exactly the same. You can see them roll like they do in the first game. Like, I just really hope that the new mutants that they add like change the gameplay enough to the point where you're like, okay, this is a game worthy of being considered a successor rather than version 1.5. Like, we're looking for I'm looking for 2.0 when it comes to it, or maybe even 3.0, like multiple steps up in quality and gameplay, and hopefully they get rid of the armor system. The armor system would be the number one thing that I do not want to see from the Forest. I think it is the most problematic system out of anything in the game.
I do see some play footage, maybe from like a dev playthrough or something,
Early
but
alpha.
yeah, it looks like the graphics did get a significant overhaul, and that'll be cool. That might make up for a little bit of the clunkiness that comes with the original system.
Right. I will say though, for one being an indie title, two coming out years ago, because it's what time or when did the original Forest come out? Like, you said 2017. That sounds about right. I want to know
2018
though.
is the earliest video I'm finding.
The Forest came out. Where's the release? And it was made by End Night, by the way. End Night Games. But it's been a long time coming for this sequel. It came out in 2014. It came out May 30th, 2014. So this is a sequel 8 years in the making.
Also, apparently in 4K. Oh,
I would expect nothing less. Also, oh, that's a Sons of the Forest trailer. I was like, that looks completely different. Is there like a mod or something for it? Um, but yeah, one of the things I noticed from the Sons of the Forest trailer was a lot of different new mutants. Like, you're not just dealing with Nose Bros, Armsies, and Virginias anymore. There's a lot of different mutants from what I saw, and hopefully more that they didn't even give sneak peeks about. Also, I expect the final boss to be like fucking nuts, just like Lovecraftian nightmarish type shit. Because that's where the series kind of seems like it's going, right? Like kind of a Lovecraft feel with horrors beyond your imagination, with the artifacts. Nobody knows where they came from. Nobody knows what they do really, or I should say how they work. They know what they do. But yeah, I do think that they left a lot of open ends and unexplained things, and considering that it's getting a sequel, I think that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that, but I want answers. I want answers for a lot of my questions that the Forest didn't answer. And I'm really hoping that Sons of the Forest will give me that. Because they give you a general idea, like, the mutants were made through experimentation with the artifacts. Okay, what kind of experimentation? What was going wrong? Why is it some are mutants, some are cannibals, and then why did it work for Megan and Timmy if that's the case? Is it being in proximity to them that causes that? Or, like, for instance, there were obvious failures that happened in the lab, because when we're walking by near the end, there's the big wall of flesh that's literally just shaped to the little glass cube that they had it in. And it's like halfway full of just flesh and eyeballs. Like, there were obvious failures as well. I also hope that they give building a better reason to exist, because putting the effort in to build even a small cabin isn't really worth it. Like, a hunting shelter is all a man needs in the forest, unless you're planning to go into endless mode. Because, like, knocking down 20 trees and building a gigantic thing just to have it whacked down by cannibals is ridiculously frustrating. There's no point to it at that point. It just ruins every point to it. There is no safety in your building.
I don't know. I'm getting pretty hype. I'm looking at a lot of trailers and a lot of playthrough and footage for Sons of the Forest, and it looks like there's actual things to do in snow biome. It looks like there are cell phone-esque items you can use. It looks like it is a bit more modern.
Yeah,
It
like
looks like the cannibals are have quite a bit more personality. You see them fighting with each other, and it looks like you can wear a cannibal's face and talk with them or blend in with them.
I didn't see
Also
that
looks
part.
like the Legsy or like the spider woman from the first one has a lot more personality in this one. Kind of looks like a slutty spider lady.
Did you see the part
Fuck.
in the trailer where you can like take a cannibal head and kind of shake it in front of them and scare them off?
Not yet, but I do see a cannibal doing like a crazy striptease, which is interesting.
But yeah, I definitely agree. There definitely looks to be more personality. I will say though that I am noticing that there is also plenty of things like the crafted bow. I genuinely hope that it is not another gun part search. Like, I wouldn't mind a few, but I swear to God, if I have to hunt down the barrel, the magazine, the slide, and then the main receiver and springs and all of this other shit to build my guns, I will lose my fucking mind.
I just don't want it to be the same game. Like,
Yeah,
we
well,
don't
it's not
want the
going to be
same
the
game with
same
a new
game, but
skin.
there's going to be a lot of reused stuff. Like, you'll watch a few more trailers after we're done with this and you'll see what I'm talking about, like especially when they show the crafting. The crafting, I would say, is pretty much exactly the same. Like, the crafting and inventory system is going to be identical besides a fresh coat of paint and animations. Like, I don't think they're going to be innovating on it very much from what I can tell in the trailer. Granted, it was a trailer from like 8 months ago, but all we have to go off of right now is trailer. Like, if they do go down the route of you need to build your guns, you need to. I'm assuming we'll have to make ammunition or find it. Like, I can't imagine that they're just gonna turn it into Call of Duty cannibals. But like, if they absolutely must go down the route of building your shit, I hope it's done more out of general parts. Like, say, I found the shotgun body. I have wood. I can take a stick and some wood and make the pump for it. And then I have metal barrels. I have springs. I have this, that, and the other. And it's just general parts that you can combine into a weapon. And all you really needed to find was the main body of it. And then it comes out, a little bit ghettofied.
I feel like there should just be a full ass gun that you pick up, and then like I don't want to add more maintenance because I think that really ruins games. Instead of making it difficult, it makes it annoying. But like
Yeah.
realistically, you should have to maintain your gun if you're going for realism, or it's gonna jam on you and you're gonna blow your hand off or some shit. Like,
Well, it depends. Like, if we're talking about a high point here, let's not turn this into a guns podcast, but it's not like if you're rocking just some. Let's even give a specific gun. Let's say you're using a Remington 870. You could put hundreds, if not thousands, of shells through that motherfucker before you're gonna have problems. So I don't think that would be too much of an issue. Like, gun maintenance would be fine as long as it's simple. Like, say you have to stop, take a couple of minutes, and apply some oil and use a rag and a stick and clear everything out.
and then that lasts you for several hours in the
Yeah.
playthrough and not minutes.
Well, like, Yeah, because that gun maintenance, you better not have to fucking clean that bitch after every 5 shots, because that is
Oh, you
so
know you're going to have
unrealistic.
to. That's what scares me. Like, I want it to be somewhat realistic, but then just like with the armor system, it becomes annoying and cumbersome.
Yeah, hopefully not. And I would like to see the armor system turned into more of a clothing system almost, like, because the clothing system in the game in the first game seems useless, right? Like, there's no point to it besides just it's how I want to look. Like, you found a suit, you stuck with it. It has no effect.
Right.
I would like to see the armor system turn into the clothing system and have those two combined. Like, hey, I found some leather pants, a leather jacket, like a thick motorcycle jacket, and I found some fucking plates. And then, you take some cloth and a sewing needle and you build yourself a plate carrier. And that has durability, yes, but it's not like, oh, I got hit once. Now half of my armor is gone.
Maybe
Unless you
go
get
skin a
just
lizard.
absolutely decked by something huge, like say the final boss gives you a big slap and it takes half the durability off of your plates. Or something like that. I'd just like to see the armor system not be what it was.
Think we're a little late to the game to them take any of our suggestions, but I really hope some of our suggestions are already in their minds because we can't be the only one that feels are the only people who feel this way. The
Right.
game was quite annoying, quite annoying.
Right. I can't say that I've even watched anybody else play the game, like, besides a couple of videos to see where locations were, so I have nobody else's opinions in my mind that I could reference, but, yeah, I can't imagine that we're the only ones that feel this way, at least about some of, if not most of, the things we've talked about. Also, even if we're late to the party, this video in the end probably is not going to get millions of views. It's an
For
8-year-old
sure.
game. I'm hoping though that with the hype of The Forest 2 coming out, that this will pick up some traction. People catching up basically before the new game comes out. Maybe I'll even go over maybe I'll make a story recap video.
Plane crash. Dude survive. Dude kill cannibal. Dude find lab. Dude kill girl cannibal. Dude save son. The end.
Yeah. Or dude doesn't save son and plays endless mode and kills more cannibals.
I really like it out here. Fuck Timmy.
Right. Gone full native. But there is one boss that even through both playthroughs we never had to deal with. And it's what's the name of it? I don't know the name of it, but it's like a bunch of different limbs that work together collectively, almost like the final boss, but then they'll fall apart and it's like a meat storm. And you'll just see these fucking like severed arms flying through the distance, and this boss comes in and they all kind of combine into this spider creature, and it's like just a random mutant that'll eventually appear. And I think it only happens to people in either endless mode. It's very possible it's only in endless mode, or if you're building a lot. Like, because even in the first game, we spent way more time building than we ever did in the second one. And we never
literally
saw it.
built nothing in the second one.
We built a couple of hunting shelters. That was about it. Everything else was a temporary shelter or a fucking fire or a utility marker. Like, we built the bare minimum. And it's because we already knew that building does nothing but, like, harm you in the end. Like, it just attracts cannibals. It makes them want to come fuck with you. Even with the repair tool, it's hard to maintain whole shelters. Trees don't spawn unless you turn on cheats for them to respawn. It's cumbersome. One thing I saw in the trailer is as they were putting up logs, they were taking an axe and chopping at the top and turning them into stockades. They were turning them into stockades.
Sorry about that. I'm back.
Oh, good. I was beginning to wonder if you were okay.
I might have to escape again. That wasn't the poop that the pains in my stomach warranted.
Well, round two maybe around the corner. We're pretty much ready to wrap up, anyways. Any final thoughts? Any final things you want to plug your social media?
No, I don't have one. Um, I think The Forest is worth playing if you haven't played it, but I also think withholding judgment until Sons of the Forest is also worth considering. I'm excited for it, but also um, I don't think I would play The Forest again. Maybe Sons of the Forest once or twice if it's good enough to play twice, but that's about where I am with it.
I'm pretty much in agreement with that. I liked The Forest. I do not think, though, that it's worth playing anything more than twice. Once to get your feet wet, and then the second time around to really delve into the game. Because you'll learn a lot of lessons on your first playthrough. The second playthrough will be very, very different. And yeah, I also will be picking up Sons of the Forest. It comes out on October 21st, supposedly, barring any delays, which I would rather have it be delayed and play it later than have it be garbage. So hopefully, with 8 years in the making, 8 years in a few months, they'll have the game ready to go by the supposed launch date, and hopefully we can record and start playing it on day one. But yeah, that's all I got. Follow my TikTok; it's the same name as my YouTube name, and I upload little short clips from my YouTube videos on there. That's about the only social media I have besides my YouTube channel. And if you're watching this, hello, congratulations, you found my YouTube channel. Good for you. Please subscribe. Would appreciate it.
Hit those bell icons, the subscribe button, and go ahead and smash that. I did that wrong.
Go ahead and smash your dick in between a book. But all right, that's the
Nope.
end. That is the end. That's the final thoughts and wrap up on The Forest. Thanks for listening, guys. If you enjoyed, like, subscribe, and comment. Like I said, and you're legally obligated to do it.